edition of the Comic Anthologist, and to please show your support, please click the subscribe button and also hit that bell at the same time to let me know, or let us know, that you're willing to come in and take a look at the work that we're posting. Today we are going to talk about, with Steve here and my brother, we're going to talk about the Ultimate Spider, talking about Miles Morales.
Let me interject. Marvel eventually obliterated it with the Secret Wars back in 2015.
But we'll definitely get to that in a bit.
Okay,
right now, we're just going to talk about trying to get to...
Yeah, but we're going to talk about the Secret Wars.
Look, we will talk about the Secret Wars later. All I'm saying is we got to get to Miles Morales.
All right.
But we can't talk about the Secret Wars because they're secret.
Exactly.
You know, look, both of y'all.
Okay.
All right, now... Right now, we're about to experience Miles Morales' debut on the screen, silver screen, which is Into the Spider-Verse, which is slated to come out December 14th, 2018. Now, Miles Morales, he made his debut in Ultimate Fallout number 4, June of 2011, back in the day when the Ultimate Spider-Man at that time, which is Peter Parker, was killed during a fight with the Green Goblin,
right,
when he took a bullet for Captain America in that universe while he was fighting with the Ultimates. And at that time, it was one of those things that when Miles got his powers, basically his father's brother, his uncle, was Aaron Morales, and he was the Prowler.
Now, Aaron Davis.
Yeah, well, okay.
Yeah, Morales.
Because
Morales is from his mother's...
In the movie is Morales.
Yeah, well, Aaron Davis.
Aaron Davis. Anyway,
AKA the Prowler.
Okay. Getting back to our point, Aaron Davis was the Prowler, and he went sneaking around Oscorp, stealing stuff or whatnot. And one of the spiders, which was a number 42, had climbed into the Prowler's bag while he was stealing the things in the
the lab. Let me interject, because the reason where that spider came from, that number 42, Norman Osborn or his company was experimenting with spiders. They wanted to replicate what happened to Peter Parker.
Exactly, because the one that bit Peter Parker in the Ultimate Universe was a spider with 2 zeros on it, which was basically the test spider, so to speak. Right. And it alters his DNA, which the same thing happened to Miles when he went to go visit his uncle after that said job was done. Now, when the spider bit him, he was eating a popsicle that his uncle gave him, and he blacked out. And then before you know it, he called his father and Miles' father, and then that's where the two started to bicker about what happened to Miles. Miles ran outside because he didn't want to get caught up with the fight that was going on between
his father and his uncle.
And then you want to interject? Go for it.
Yeah, well, the thing was, there was one power that Peter Parker doesn't. Well, a couple of powers Miles Morales has that Peter Parker has. And to react to the situation that Miles Morales was dealing with his father and his uncle, he basically turned invisible, or he blended in with the background like a chameleon.
He decided to test his theory. He started climbing the walls. And instead of being elated with joy, Miles was like, oh no.
And see, the thing is with Miles too, as well, is he has another power that Peter Parker does not have, which is called a Venom Blast. All he has to do is touch someone on the shoulder or whatever,
and it'll short out their electrical systems or their brain synapses and mess them up in such a way that it'll knock them out for a few minutes.
So what I find interesting about what they're thinking is with the spider is and you know, you can tell me if this is something that they've moved forward with other iterations. The idea that, okay, the spider bit him, so instead of with the old Peter Parker. It was radioactive, and he basically assumed the powers of the spider.
Spider, right.
But it's sounding like what they did with Miles
genetic
is that,
modification, yeah.
Right. So whatever, it kind of adapted to what he was going through personally at the time. So he did get the spider powers, but it also augmented to what he was feeling from coming with the invisible and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting, and it's a neat idea that they expanded on it. But is that something they went with going forward with other iterations of Spider-Man?
No,
or is this
it's the only
strictly with
Miles Morales. Yeah. And the way how the character came about was that Axel Alonso had basically said,
the editor-in-chief
of Marvel at that time had said there was a change coming. And he said flat out that we need to look at changing one of our icons of one of our lines in the Ultimate Universe. and see what we can do with it. And that's when they decided to go ahead and create the Ultimatum storyline. But Miles Morales was conceived in 2008, but it wasn't until that Donald Glover had showed up on an episode on this, what was it, the first or the second episode of the second season of Community, called Anthropology 101, where he showed up in a Peter Parker pajama set and was wondering about how he can audition for the role of Peter Parker and being a black Spider-Man. Now, Brian Michael Bendis got the idea of writing that Spider-Man. He said, oh, I can see this happening. He wanted something his kids can relate to.
Right.
And so therefore, him and Sara Pichelli put together Miles Morales in Ultimate Fallout. And then basically had Miles Morales fight the first villain, which was the Kangaroo.
The Kangaroo, right.
But he was wearing Peter Parker's old suit.
Red and blue outfit.
But it was a costume version of it. And everybody after the fight was
yeah,
like...
they looked at him like it was done in bad taste, because this is already in the aftermath of Peter Parker had already passed away. And a lot of people didn't like that.
Yeah, see, that's what I was going to ask about, because I know when this happened, I read about it, I knew about it, and I was just curious. I can't remember what my feelings were about it then, especially being an old school comic guy.
Right.
Obviously, when you have change, especially with something, an icon like that, it can cause, great upheaval.
Oh, and it did.
It did.
I'll
yeah,
just say
a lot
this.
of
There
people
was so much controversy about it because they're saying you're taking the icon and turning him upside down on his head. And people were pissed off about the change in terms of the new Spider-Man.
Because everyone wanted to stick with the old formula, the old school, like what you were talking about, like for what you read back in the day. And what we all read, I should say.
Yeah. And I mean, because I know one of my opinions still, even today, with like some changes that they've done is...
Well, it was one of those things, and I'll say this. Stan Lee wrote off on it. He said this was basically a positive thing for kids that's growing up. And he wrote off, not signed off on it, but he signed off on it in such a way, in a positive way, saying that what Axel Alonso and Brian Michael Bendis and Sara Pichelli had put together, they said flat out, he says, no, go with it, because it's taking the concept and it's still keeping the core concept of Peter Parker was, and the essence of Spider-Man, the way it is. He says, no, keep it the way it is. And move forward with
and my whole thing is with when they did that was I focused in more of the story as opposed to him just being a black superhero or black Spider-Man, because I wanted to see the stories, how they wrote that and crafted, like how is he dealing with this, how is he dealing with that, like the story with his Uncle Aaron, and then his uncle ultimately becoming a villain of that particular Spider-Man, being the Prowler.
And not only that, let me interject, also dealing with his father, who had a phobia, and also
he had a hatred, almost a borderline hatred of superheroes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
His father did not know, and his mother did not know. So he kept it secret from him for a long time until...
And his best friend, the only person that he knew that the closest iteration of that character is he had a friend named Ganke, Ganke, that's with him, that's been with him throughout school.
Yep.
And he's like a brain himself, like unto himself as well, like very smart. But Ganke is basically his confidant. And basically, with that being said, Miles Morales had to learn how to be Spider-Man with those powers, whether he liked it or not.
Yep.
But the thing that pushed him over the edge to become Spider-Man is when Peter Parker passed away. He felt like he could have done something, because he had already had the powers before Peter Parker
But he kept quiet about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when Parker was killed, shot by that bullet, trying to fight the Green Goblin, that version of the Green Goblin, which was more demonic or whatnot, he bled to death. He bled out while he was fighting the Green Goblin, trying to protect, because Green Goblin was going to go over there and kill Parker's aunt, and kill Gwen Stacy, and kill Mary Jane. He was going to go kill everyone, just to make an example of him. But Parker stopped him, and S.H.I.E.L.D. stepped in and stopped him. But he said, I did it, Aunt May, I did it, and he just passed away because he bled out.
Oh, wow.
And Miles Morales saw that news report. He felt like because by then he already had the powers, he felt like he could have done something. And so that was one of the things that was instrumental in propelling him to become the Spider-Man, his particular version of Spider-Man. Even though he had already had the powers, he was hiding out. Now, I want to interject too. Now, he had his own adventures in the Ultimate Universe, but eventually they did away with the Ultimate Comics line.
Oh yeah, when that took place with the Secret
Wars that we were talking about, that took place in 2015. I know they were.
Yeah, it's the Secret Wars.
Exactly.
But people will always look at the 1984 version as the main
quintessential.
Secret Wars. But we will get to that later. Bottom line, let's get back to Miles Morales.
Yes. Now, because one thing I wanted to say about that, and I don't mind, I get it, because especially with kids, this is a little bit off topic, but it's on topic. I watched, when I was growing up, a lot of, even here in America, a lot of Japanese animation and like Johnny Sacco and Ultraman. But I could just see it as kids being snide and stuff like that, saying, well, you can't be Spider-Man because, you're not white. And I think that was, I get why they wanted to do that with an icon, because sometimes, you can create, and I'm also rebutting my feelings about certain things too, back in the day, but you can create a new character, but the problem is that character doesn't have the history and the background and it's not an icon, and it may not necessarily become one. So if you can take the icon and then show that it's possible that these people or that person can be like that icon, it just opens the door to more people, which is...
Right. But see, this is where I'm going to interject, and this is part of the Spider-Verse as well, is where we have Miguel O'Hara. Now, he is of Irish and Latin descent. Just like Miles Morales is of African-American Latin descent as well. So they took the whole concept, and we talked about this about Spider-Man 2099 a few weeks ago, where Spider-Man 2099 is a direct result of the missing heroes of that time frame, but they took the Spider-Man concept and turned it on its head in terms of genetically bonding him with a spider versus him being bitten certain parts. But getting back to Miles Morales, this is one of those times where they took the concept of Spider-Man and turned it on its head. That's why we have this whole concept of the spider. To the other point, what is your favorite story about, or rather one of your favorite stories in the Miles Morales comics?
I would have to say his origin, I wouldn't even say his origin when he defined himself as Spider-Man, there was this 5-issue limited series called Spider-Men. They talked, and basically Peter Parker got a chance to talk to his Aunt May.
Another version of
Aunt May. He got a chance to see Gwen Stacy, where in Peter Parker's main timeline,
Gwen Stacy is gone.
Yeah, she died at the hands of the Green Goblin. But it kind of flipped everything on its head. But the two of them meeting, one thing I liked about it, how it ended, was Peter Parker gave him his blessing. It's like, you're a perfect Spider-Man. Do your thing and handle what you need to handle.
And not only that, too, let me interject. Aunt May did give Miles Morales Peter Parker's web shoes. That's when, I'll give you my favorite story.
Before we get to the Secret Wars?
Yes, because we're about to run out of time. It's the Venom Wars.
Oh, that's right, because during the Venom Wars, that's when Miles Morales lost his mother.
But during a firefight with the police and Venom, his mother was in the way, and she ended up getting shot up by the bullets that went straight through Venom and shot her. And Miles had to grab her and took her. He took his mask off. Mom, please don't leave me. And she's looking at him. She says, I'm proud of you. Don't tell your dad. Those were her last words. And that was his Uncle Ben moment, where that defined him and that made him the man that he became, eventually Spider-Man. But he did quit being Spider-Man for a year. So by the time we flash forward, right before the Secret Wars, he's 16. Because he's proved to be such a popular character that he is now considered one of the last survivors of his universe, of the Ultimate Universe of that timeline.
Right. Okay. So.
Any other questions? Please feel free to comment. And I thank our guest. And if you feel free to comment, look us up on the Comic Anthologist at gmail.com. And once again, hit the subscribe button to show your support, and also click that bell just to show us that you are tuning in and taking a look at it. Until then, take it easy. And this is about the Spider-Verse, but more importantly, Miles Morales. Peace.